Elizabeth of Hungary. So I'll talk a little bit more about her in a second. I know that this time's a little bit different than normal, but said I've got a variety of, different. Get the light a little bit. Seems kind of harsh, kind of dark this morning, I guess. Um, but I, because of my schedule, it's just not the normal today. The normal time just wasn't going to work, so I'm doing it a little bit earlier. But as I said, today we remember Saint Elizabeth of Hungary. She has kind of a fascinating story, even though she didn't live very long. She only lived to be 24. Um, but she's born in 1207 um, in Hungary. And she's from a noble family. And one of the interesting things was at 5 years old, she sent away to Germany um, to be brought up in the court at Wartburg, um, and that's because she's been betrothed to Ludwig. And so, as 5 years old, she's sent away to live with her future husband and to be brought up in that court. So, obviously, interesting times and different ways that royal families handle some of these things. But it's interesting that all indications are that Ludwig and Elizabeth were a wonderful pair, very deeply in love with each other. So, I guess an arranged marriage with a 5 year old, and I'm trying to think of how much he was a little bit older than her. I think he was 7 years older than her. So about a 12-year-old and a 5 year old, but that somehow or another still worked. And so I think he was 20, yeah, he was 21 and she was 14 when they got married in 1221. And from the very beginning, she showed a great love for caring for the poor. She wanted to live more of a simple life than, kind of a great regal life. She would share whatever she had. And it seems that, Ludwig was right along with her in that. There's a story that during a famine, she pretty much gave away all the food that they had stored up, and people were kind of complaining to Ludwig, like, "Hey, wait, your wife just gave away all the food that we have." And he said, "Don't worry, her generosity will provide. God will provide blessings for us because of her generosity." And then there's also the story, another famous story that one time she brought a leper in and put the leper in their bed, and Ludwig found out, and he wasn't real happy about it. But when he storms into the bedroom and kind of pulls back the bed covers from the leper, he has kind of this conversion experience, and sees in the leper the crucified Christ. And so he is very supportive of her charitable works. From then on, I mean, he was before, but it seems like he even had even a greater conversion at that point. The castle that they lived in was kind of on a hill, and so she built, I guess, for lack of a better term, a hospital at the bottom. People, poor would come to her all the time. She cared for orphans. She really did put her, I guess, power and wealth to very great work in helping out those who were in need. Um, Ludwig goes off to join a crusade that I think was Frederick II was putting together. He fortunately contracts the plague and dies. This is in 1227, so they've been married just 6 years when this happens. And once Elizabeth finds this out, it's very she's very inconsolable for a while. They say that the description is that she would just wander around through the castle weeping uncontrollably. Um, but eventually, she kind of moves past it, probably works through her grief. And, obviously, she's very young at this point, that there were, you know, it would be seen that she would probably, she could be remarried, and I'm sure family members were trying to set that up. But before Ludwig had left, they had made this promise to each other that whatever happened, they would never remarry, and so she didn't. She saw this as an opportunity to really live a very simple life, and so she kind of divested herself of everything. She had trying to think of how many children there were, um, exactly what uh, she, but however there were, she had her, she kind of sent her children away, which sounds, very kind of cold to us, but she was sent away at 5 years old, but she made sure that they were taken care of. She placed them in places that she was sure that they would be cared for. She designed and they built for her just a little house that also had kind of a hospice, they called it, attached to it, so she would care for widows and orphans and the sick and the dying. And she became a third order Franciscan, so trying to follow, obviously, poverty being so important to her, that the Francis would be something that would be attractive to her. And it seems like at that point too, she kind of came under the influence of a confessor who really was stressing, I guess you would call it, very strict ascetical life. So great mortifications, and it seems that there's no indication that this was done, except for the best motives. But obviously, these deprivations and all of these different sacrifices took their toll on her eventually, and she died at the age of 24 in 1231. And it's interesting though too that a church, since she had a royal family, her church was built in in Marburg in her honor, and that's where her relics were taken. But when a Lutheran kind of head of the area took out the relics were removed, and they've never been um, found. So we don't know where her relics are. But it was only 4 years later that she was canonized by Pope Gregory the Ninth. Um, so dies in 1231, and in 1235 she's canonized. So Saint Elizabeth of Hungary is known as a great lover of the poor and dedicating her life, um, even though being regal, simplicity of life and caring for those in need, and using her resources to do that. So she's a great example for us as we continue to navigate through the pandemic and look out for each other and pray for one another. And we pray that I'll pray that through the intercession today of Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, God will greatly bless all of us. So have a great day, everyone.